negging. Low-grade insults meant to undermine the self-confidence of a woman so she might be more vulnerable to your advances.
Oh, because are you going to claim that she's negging him?
No, this whole...
Like he's negging her and then she negs him back?
Yeah, like that's like... This is like negging the movie.
It's a neg fest. I like it. Did you see it used in a sentence? Dude, don't neg. It was the example sentence.
This is Scott.
I'm Ben.
Hey, it's TJ.
And this is a review. On today's episode, which is episode 3, we are going to be reviewing Phantom Thread. Directed and written by Paul Thomas Anderson, who you guys might know as the director of Boogie Nights, There Will Be Blood, Magnolia, Inherent Vice, etc. So basically, this movie, Phantom Thread, follows Reynolds Woodcock, a dress designer in... What year does this movie take place? We didn't do our research.
I think it's the 50s. It's after World War II.
After World War II. So it's... 1950s London, yeah. So Reynolds Woodcock.
Mr. Woodcock.
Mr. Woodcock. He's a dressmaker. He's I would say a world-renowned dressmaker.
Oh, yeah.
Because he makes dresses for royalty.
The
right.
Belgian princess.
Yeah, princesses and countesses.
Right, and so basically the plot here is Reynolds Woodcock falls in love, I guess you could say, with a waitress, and she becomes his muse. He is a very, what's the word? Particular artistic mind that really, he has a very particular look in a woman that he likes, that he can design dresses on. And so this woman, who is an actress that I've never heard of before, her name is Vicky Krieps. Vicky Krieps. I hope it's not Vicky Krieps.
I think it's Crepes.
Vicky Krieps.
Vicky Krieps.
She plays Alma in the film. And the only other real notable actress or actor in this movie at all is Leslie Manville, who plays Cyril, which is Daniel Day-Lewis's Reynolds Woodcock's sister. And so what you end up with is this very long, very slowly paced drama about these two characters struggling to... It's hard to describe. What would you guys say exactly is the plot of this movie? I'm struggling even to summarize this thing right now.
The plot of this film is quite simply anal retentive dress designer continues to be anal retentive dress designer, and then the movie ends.
I think you might have fallen asleep or missed a lot of the movie. There's some other things going on in there.
No.
Yeah, to speak a little bit to what Ben is talking about, there is a lot of setups in this movie that do not go the way you would expect. In most movies, they would set something up and then you get a payoff. In this movie, the payoff is usually very, very subtle and very nuanced to the point of it seems like nothing is happening. There's long stretches of this film that are just slow, ponderous shots of the environment, and it takes you a long time to really realize what actually is happening in this movie.
Yeah, I see Ben boiling over there, but before he erupts, I gotta say, it's a very quiet, patient film.
Yeah.
Which initially is why it seems kind of like, I can see why people might say it's slow and things like that, because it really tries to pull you in and makes you hold on moments. Doesn't kind of cut a lot in the editing. It's very patient in the way it's crafted. But because of that, I think Ben might not have liked it as much.
No. You know, you might think that I'm just the loudmouth simpleton that just because there wasn't explosions and MLG sounds. I get it. It's just nothing, like when I go see a movie, I want to see things get paid off. So, no one changes in this movie. Daniel Day-Lewis is the same from beginning to end, except now he's a little more ill. Waitress, she's pretty much the same. She gets a little more embedded into the world of the House of Woodcock, but she's the same. The sister is exactly the same, and then there's no other characters in the movie.
So I would disagree in that This movie really is about the dynamic between, it's a power struggle between two people in a relationship. And the first half of this movie is a lot about Alma, the waitress, trying to get Daniel Day-Lewis's Mr. Woodcock to pay attention to her, to need her. She needs him to need her. And by the end of the movie, the flip is that he also needs her to need him. It's this weird symbiotic relationship. So I would say that the development comes with these two characters learning how to manipulate each other in these really sick ways.
It's interesting because you start the movie and you're kind of more relating with Alma, trying to figure out the mystery of who this guy is. And like you said, she's really trying to get him to open up.
Yeah.
And to let her into his world. And the sister is always kind of like, that's not a good idea. But she keeps pushing through and she keeps doing things to make him open up. And then I felt like there was a switch around halfway in the movie. And I won't say what it was, but you'll know when you see it. And then all of a sudden I'm relating more with Daniel Day-Lewis's character.
Yes.
And I'm kind of like, oh, whoa. Now I'm seeing the movie more from his perspective. So it was kind of interesting how they do all that.
Yeah, the movie really does dance around with who you're sympathizing with. And it definitely, like you said, the first half of the movie, Daniel Day-Lewis just seems like an asshole. And he is. He definitely is, because he can't be disturbed. He has very particular ways of doing everything. Everything needs to be cooked exactly the way he wants, and he can't have his time disturbed. But it's very entertaining to watch, and we haven't really mentioned too much about the sister yet. Leslie, what's the actress's name?
Leslie Manville.
Leslie Manville. She basically is the only character that relates to Reynolds Woodcock. She is able to put up with his madness. She makes everyone else cater to him in the way that he demands to be catered to, and he kind of lives in this bubble.
Cyril is right. Cyril is always right.
And so when Alma comes into the house, that kind of breaks the bubble and kind of disrupts him from this cycle.
Well, they do a good job showing that Alma's different than the previous muses he's had.
Right.
Because they make a point to say he's kind of a bachelor type, and we have that intro scene at the beginning where we see that other girl fighting for his attention, and he just does not care or give it to her.
Right.
And he just gets out of the room. Whereas, like, with Alma, she fights for it, where other girls seem like they just let it happen until it was too late. She fought from day one, was kind of the initial difference to me.
Yeah, they always they do a good job of, and some of the more interesting scenes in the movie where I was like fully engaged are the sort of where they're just having that dynamic and having like more traditional sort of that relationship friction. They're kind of going through the road bumps. That stuff was interesting for me. Like the straightforward romance stuff, if it would have been more traditional in that sense, I probably would have dug it a lot more. Actually, I want to go back to the sister too. I thought in a lot of ways she was really, really interesting, and I think she was kind of underutilized because I think she was the best performance in the movie. And she has this air of like she's the matriarch, she's sort of like the lord of the house, sort of in charge. And like the best scene in the movie is when he's sort of popping off at his sister, and she basically is not going to take his shit, and she's like, I'll put you in the fucking ground if you try to come at me with your bullshit. Like, I'll tolerate it, but like, don't give me that.
Don't pick a fight with me. You certainly won't come out alive. I'll go right through you, and it'll be you who ends up on the floor. Understood?
Their dynamic, I think, is more interesting than the romance itself.
Well, but
if it would have been developed more.
I agree, but there's also your character growth. Yeah, I mean, earlier you're kind of saying the characters don't grow, and I disagree completely with that. I think each character does actually have an arc and does grow and learns and grows in some way, and that's the moment for the sister. It's the first time in the movie she doesn't put up with his BS.
Right, and it seems like that is kind of what we've been getting at, is that he has been somebody for so long in his life who's never had somebody to call him on his shit, and now that this woman is here, for the first half of the movie, you get the sense that Leslie Manville's character doesn't like Alma.
I'm very fond of her.
But by the end of the movie, you realize it's quite the opposite. She really likes her because she is breaking him out of the mold, even though she thinks it's not a great idea. She sees how that can be dangerous to his fragile ecosystem of a life.
I didn't ask for tea.
No, but
Take it out, please.
yes, I can take it out.
It's a bit late now, isn't it?
I'm taking it out.
Yeah, but it's a bit late now, isn't it?
But I'm taking it out.
The tea is going out. The interruption is staying right here with me.
Paul Thomas Anderson as a director has always been very divisive, and I get why people I get why not everyone likes his movies. From my own perspective, he's one of my favorite filmmakers ever. Honestly, I think he's my favorite director because I think that he gives you a unique perspective from characters that you don't get in a lot of his films. And I like that it's not conventional, and I like that he kind of throws what you're expecting out the window. And this isn't really as much of a story as it is a character piece.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Character piece.
Yeah.
That's what this movie is. You're watching like a couple moments in these characters' lives. There's not a whole plot to it. The plot is these new characters are here. We're going to watch them interact.
I think part of the thing that also is a barrier for people to enjoy this is it is pretentious. Like the world of designing dresses and like his whole persona is pretentious, and they do call him out on that at some point in the film. So I think that is an element that's supposed to be there, but you are still spending 2 hours in the 50s with a pretentious dressmaker in London. So you still have to watch that. Like, you're not, just because it is well done doesn't mean you can separate yourself from that aspect. So it's a lot like There Will Be Blood, which I'd argue is it moves along a little bit more as a film, but it's still that same idea of you're just sitting with these characters for long, drawn-out periods of time and kind of getting into their heads.
Well, there's a lot more dynamism in There Will Be Blood, too. You sort of see his whole escalation and sort of downfall. That's why I what I wanted from this movie. I wanted someone to have a spiral or someone to go nuts.
I am the third revelation. I told you I would eat you.
We're family.
I told you I would eat you up.
We're brothers. We're brothers.
I would have wanted to be a more sort of sweeping, conflicted romance, like this doomed love. Like, I think there's a lot of potential to make something really sort of gripping in that sense, but this movie just, for me, it just dragged along, and I was just like squirming in the theater. Yeah. Just for calendar year 2017, this was the worst time I had in the theater, because at least Justice League was stupid.
And we've barely touched on the filmmaking in this movie is incredible. The cinematography is absolutely gorgeous. The music is really great. The editing is well done. Like, everything from a technical angle is very, very, very top-notch. It has that classic film grain feel to it. Where it feels like a physical thing that you're watching instead of just a digital. I'm not a huge cinephile guy where I get all like, ooh, film has to be preserved. But you do, like, you can notice when somebody's really taking their time and doing it right.
Well, it's an eloquent movie, you know, like the craftsmanship that PTA put into making the movie is the same I saw Daniel Day-Lewis putting into making his dresses in a lot of way.
Yes.
How, like, I assume PTA is just as particular about every little thing. I mean, he practically shot this movie.
He did.
You know?
And I get the idea that this character is very personally close to Paul Thomas Anderson. I get the idea watching this is his bearing of his soul about how he feels about his art and how he creates stuff. I just wish almost it would have been in a movie that was a little bit more upbeat. Like, you know, most of his movies do have a little bit more style in that way. This is a lot more straightforward. Yeah. It doesn't do anything crazy genre-wise. The ending, I know a lot of people have been talking about. It fits in with the rest of the movie, but it is an odd... You will definitely be expecting it to go in one way, and then it kind of goes in the other way, which I kind of liked, but it also kind of left me a little confused until later we kind of worked our way through it. But it's definitely a movie you will walk out of and be tilting your head with confusion, I think.
What did you guys feel about tonally? For me, this movie was a tonal mess. Like, there's some stuff in it where, you know, like, I don't know if it was supposed to be funny, like him getting, like, triggered by asparagus and having a full-blown temper tantrum. Like, I get it's part of his character, but it's like, it's so menial I don't know. There's a lot of stuff in this movie that was super out there, and I didn't know if it was supposed to be funny or...
I think it was.
Yeah, it was intentionally funny to me because it's like a character quirk, and it's helping us to understand like how he feels and how annoying this must be for her, because we're definitely more relating to her who just went through all the trouble of making this asparagus.
Maybe you have no taste.
Maybe I like my own taste.
Yes, just enough to get you into trouble.
Perhaps I'm looking for trouble.
Stop.
It worked for me tonally, but I could totally see why you would say that. So, I mean, valid.
So for final thoughts, TJ, what did you think of Phantom Thread?
You know, I liked it. It's not the type of movie I normally seek out, but I enjoyed it. I think there's some really interesting commentary about what it is to be an artist and what that does to the people around you. And I like that commentary. I almost would have rather seen a little bit more of that to an extent. But I like how it was subtle, so it was good.
All right, Ben. Final thoughts.
Not my cup of tea. I said this earlier, aside from some really nice cinematography and occasionally there's some just flourishes, I think overall not very interestingly shot. There's some really cool stuff intermittently and some good acting, interesting music. Not my cup of tea. Way too long. It could have gone in so many ways and really revved things up and gone, where I would have been along for the ride, but it really for me, it just kind of sort of limps to the end, and, for me, it just tested my patience a lot. Maybe I'm smut, I don't know, but yeah.
No, that's totally fair. And for me, like I said, I also really enjoyed this movie. It does definitely drag. It's not the most quickly paced movie ever, but I liked that. I thought that it moved along at appropriate speed. It definitely is a cautionary tale for anyone that's thinking about dating a very, very, an artist that's to that degree of, wrapped up in their work. It make you think twice about that. And I don't know if I can recommend this movie for everybody, but it wasn't a movie I even actually was interested in watching myself, other than I like the director, and it's an award movie that is in the discussions right now, and I was very pleasantly surprised. I give Phantom Thread a solid 9 buttery asparagus out of 10. TJ.
Give it 7 shroomy omelets.
All right. Ben.
I'd give it 2.5 lackluster ices, because that's all I had to keep me comfort when I was watching this slow-moving pile of shit.
That's great.
If you don't like artistic movies, just bring a friend that likes artistic movies less than you, and you'll enjoy it more.
We seriously enjoyed watching Ben watch this movie way more than we enjoyed actually watching the movie.
If I saw it with just me and Scott, I'd probably give it a 5, but Ben jumped it up to a 7.
Also, are none of us going to talk about the fact that his name is Mr. Woodcock?
Yeah, we were trying to be grown up about that, but come on, can we take a moment to laugh about that?
We definitely need to shoot a clip for the trailer.
Oh, there's gonna be Mr.
Bob Thornton.
Yeah, that's already
stop.
happening. That's like the thesis joke for this review. So,
Daniel Day Thornton,
Billy Bob Lewis.
Billy Bob Lewis.
All right. Well, hey, this has been a review. I'm Scott.
I'm TJ.
And I'm Ben.
Thanks for listening.
All through junior high, John Farley struggled to keep up.
Are you going to be a loser?
No, sir.
Rhetorical, Farley. I already know the answer. You are a disgrace to fat, gelatinous, out-of-shape little kids the world over.
I can't hang on.
Don't you even think about letting go.
He's going to need all the self-help he can get.
Hey, Mom.
You're here!
Are you seeing someone?
Yeah? You know him already.
Mr. Woodcock.
Well, it looks like I'm going to be your new dad.
He's hooking up with your mom?
This isn't happening.
You must like getting spanked, Farley. I guess it runs in the family.
I'm gonna get inside his wheelhouse and spin him like a top.
Are you okay? Rhetorical question, Woodcock.
Mr. Woodcock.